Hello everyone and welcome to today's Kerbal Space Program 2 recreation. Today we will be featuring the Vulcan rocket, which actually has yet to fly. It was supposed to fly on Christmas Eve but got delayed, and so now it will be flying very shortly after this video is uploaded. Today we will be sending the Astrobotic Peregrine lunar lander to the moon, or in KSP, the Mun. I think we're about ready to lift off the Vulcan rocket here. Any second now. There we go, and liftoff of the Vulcan rocket. Vulcan is, of course, ULA's next generation launch vehicle, and it is to implement reusable technology. Unfortunately, though, KSP2 and my skills in KSP2 do not allow me to recreate that part of the mission, so we will just be enacting this mission as an expendable mission, just like the actual Peregrine, or the actual Astrobotic lunar mission will be. It will be an expendable mission. They will not try to recover the engines on this flight. One thing you may notice, though, that's different from the actual upcoming flight is that this Vulcan has 6 SRBs, as opposed to the 2 that will be flying on Peregrine. That is actually because the thrust of the 2 RS-25 engines that we're using here, which are not BE4s, they actually lowered it from KSP-1. Up, here's stage separation. There goes the boosters. They didn't fly away quite as eloquently as I wanted them to, but, you know, what can you do? But anyway, back to why we were using the 6 boosters. It's because, as you'll see right now, we actually have to keep the vehicle angled up really high, a high attitude of attack, or angle of attack. And that's because those 2 engines down there, they actually lowered the thrust from KSP-1. In KSP-1, it was 1,000 kilonewtons or 1,000 newtons or something like that. In here, it's been lowered down to like 750 something. So it's quite low now. And we needed 6 SRBs to actually get this thing off the ground. So it's not exactly a Vulcan because it can't do it with 2 SRBs. But it's close enough, in my opinion. The thrust to weight ratio with 2 SRBs was like 0.0, it was like 1.01, which is just absolutely not going to make it into orbit. But so that's my first recommendation to the KSP2 team, is to increase that thrust back to 1,000 for the KS-25 engines. That's my first suggestion. I do have another suggestion, though. Eventually, you'll start to see it on the nav ball, but these engines, unlike any other engine in KSP2, they just love to wobble back and forth. They don't like to sit still. Yep, there you go. So you can see it on the nav ball right there. It's just wobbling back and forth, and it's really a bit of annoying to correct that. But it's not a terribly big issue because I still got to orbit. So in fact, I think we're gonna start speeding it up right here, just so that you guys can, you know, we can get to the stage separation a little bit sooner. So I'll cut it here and we'll speed it up. And we're back, and so we are now approaching engine shutdown. Another difference between this Vulcan and, yep, there's engine shutdown. And we should have stage separation very shortly. Yep, there we go. There goes the 2 engines. Just going to do a quick puff of the RL-10s to separate us from the core. One other difference between this and the actual Vulcan is that this is a proper sustainer stage like SLS, whereas the core stage for Vulcan doesn't go quite this far. And that's, of course, because the tank in the actual tank I used has just obscene amounts of fuel, which was in part causing the low thrust to weight ratio of the RS-25 engines, but it also means that it just keeps going and going and going forever. Now, I actually overshot a bit. I wanted to go 100 by 100, but I went up to 116. So what I'm doing here is I'm just pointing directly down into the atmosphere to, or at least I was, to try to purge off some speed, but it didn't really work. Now we should be getting ready for fairing separation, and I wanted to do this upright so that you guys can see the little tiny lander that I put inside of it. 3, 2, yep, there it goes. And there's the, first of all, there's the MUN, and second of all, there's the Astrobotic Peregrine Lunar Lander. What do you guys think of that? I was pretty happy with it. It's nice and little. It's a little guy. So that's our Peregrine Lunar Lander. It's got a little solar panel up at the top, got 4 little landing legs. Now, here is the biggest issue I have encountered so far in KSP2. My orbit line is just gone. It just does not exist. Now, there was ways around this, and I'm going to show you how I got around them. Because you don't actually need the orbit line to make it to orbit. You just need to burn at apogee until your perigee is at anywhere above 70 kilometers. So that's easy. Getting to the MUN was the hard part. And I'll speed up and we can talk about that in a second. So we're back, and there we go. We have engine relight. Now, we didn't make a maneuver for this because there is no orbit line anymore. So as I explained previously, we just waited till we were at the highest point in our orbit and burned until our lowest point in our orbit got above 70, and then I burned it some more until it got to 100, so we were sort of circularized. And we're just going to let this thing burn out, and then we're going to speed it up again to the point where we try to go to the MUN. And here we are. As I've already explained, we have no orbit line, but you can still get to the MUN without an orbit line or a maneuver. In KSP, to get to the MUN without a maneuver node, all you have to do is wait until the moon appears above the horizon and then fire your engines. Now, the big problem with not having a maneuver line is that I don't know when we're going to intersect with the moon or the MUN. So I have no clue when to stop the burn. But I figured that if I just Googled how far the MUN orbited from Kerbin, I could just burn until I reached that distance and then use the Peregrine Lander to correct any issues. As we will see, that didn't work quite well, and I will return when that mistake pops up. And here we are at engine shutdown, which should be occurring very shortly. There we go, well, I think yeah. So, what you can see I'm doing right here is I'm trying to get to 3,000 kilometers because that's where the MUN orbits. At least I thought. Because, now, in hindsight, 3,000 seems very low, but I actually, while I was doing this, I didn't know how far away the MUN was, so I just Googled it. I went on the internet and I searched MUN orbital distance from Kerbin, and it popped up this big, nice, fancy number, 2970 kilometers, 2,970 kilometers. So I just burned until I hit then, and of course, because there is no orbit line, I can't see what the orbit looks like, so I just have to separate the lander, and, well, first I'm going to reorient it, but I'm going to separate the lander, and then we're just going to go far, far out from Kerbin and see if I intersect the MUN. And as you can see here, I very clearly do not intersect the MUN. Not at all. So, Google lied to me, and that's why I wasn't able to actually get to the MUN this time. I will, of course, cut it and you'll see me actually get to the Mun, I promise. But I left this specific part in because I wanted, because even though I could have done it if I had the accurate numbers, I still think it's important that the Kerbal Space Program 2 developers know that this is an issue. This isn't the first time I've had this issue either. If you remember back to the Apollo video I did, you'll remember that I had the exact same issue with the orbit line disappearing, except I was lucky enough to have already been on a trajectory to the Mun at the time, so it didn't matter. But here, getting to the Mun without an orbit line is incredibly difficult. Even I couldn't do it this time because I can't see anything. So, message for the KSP2 devs. Next update, orbit lines need to be fixed, because this is an issue. Now, I will be cutting it here, and I will go re-record the TLI burn, and we will actually get to the Mun the next time you hear from me. So, I shall see you then. And we're back. I have already completed the translunar injection burn, and we do indeed have an orbit line this time. As you can see right here, it's taken us right past the Mun. So we will be able to complete this mission today. So yeah, that's what we're at right now. One thing I would like to point out is I don't know if this is a glitch or if this was intentional, but I'm going through all of the camera views right now, and none of them are giving me the traditional orbital view from KSP1. The only one that does anything close to that is Capture, and you're about to see why Capture isn't going to work. Capture sort of does that, but then we're about to stage the lander, and you'll see why Capture doesn't work. There's staging, and now in Capture mode, we literally just cannot move outside of the lander, so we can't use Capture mode. So that's another thing I think the devs may need to fix, is we definitely need a traditional orbital mode, because right now everything is just some variation of horizon mode, and it's kind of annoying. But yeah, that's all I have to say for the rest of the mission. Everything else is went pretty well. I'll speed through the coast phase, and we can just get to the landing. So I'll see you then. And here we are at Lunar Orbit Insertion Burn. We have, I think, just completed that. No, that was a misfire. I didn't mean to fire that early. We're about to start it right about now. One thing I would like to point out that you may notice is that we are not landing at the South Pole of the Mun. Whereas the real Peregrine, that's exactly where it will be landing. The reason we aren't landing at the South Pole is because I could have done it if I really wanted to, but frankly, the whole situation with the orbit lines just kind of made me want to just do a normal mission and get it done as soon as possible, because I think if I had tried to do the polar orbit, it just wouldn't have worked out as well. Right now, I'm just trying to get it to land somewhere where we can see the Kerbin. So that's what's going on right now. I'll speed through this coast phase as well, and we can get to the landing, and there you go. So I'll see you in a second. And here we are getting ever closer to the lunar surface, and we should be descending shortly. Actually, we are descending right now. We should be landing shortly. So here is the final descent of the Astrobotic Peregrine lander on the maiden flight of the Vulcan rocket. And by the way, here's to hoping that the Peregrine in real life actually does just as well and is able to make it down to the surface of the moon. Because historically speaking, landing on the moon is fairly difficult for some. The US hasn't done it in 50 years. And the last time, it was a lot more complex. So maybe there is some hope there. So, rooting for you, Peregrine. And here we go on the very final stage of descent. Almost to the surface. And as you can see, we're actually using the RCS thrusters. Since this is such a light vehicle, we can actually save some fuel and use the RCS thrusters to slow us down even further. This thing, fun fact, this thing can actually hover using just the RCS thrusters. I've done it before. And touchdown! We have touchdown to the Peregrine lander, and I'm going to extend those legs a little bit. They're a bit low to the ground. But there we have it. You can sort of see Kerbin in the background. Sort of. But that is it. That is the mission completed. We can see Kerbin. We've landed on the Mun. And I guess that's where this video is going to end, guys. First things first, I would like to promote a video by Tannar. Tannar actually did a Vulcan recreation, and I saw that, and it inspired me to do this one. So I will post a link to his video in the description below. And I would also like to thank the channel members, Felicia Vreeland and Myers. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. And with that, I think this might be the end of the video. I'll see you next time.